The wind howled across the crumbling landscape, carrying with it the stench of decay and distant echoes of chaos. Once a proud city in Middle America, the town of Hadley now lay in ruins, its streets deserted, windows shattered, and the silence more terrifying than any scream. But deep beneath the surface, buried within the old military tunnels, a hidden stronghold pulsed with life. Fort Grayson was its name, an abandoned Cold War base that had been reactivated in secret by a group of survivors. Its very existence was unknown to most of the outside world, and that was by design. The government had used it decades ago to store classified research and weaponry. Now, it served as a last line of defense for the few who had managed to escape the undead. Captain Elias Ward, a former Army strategist with a hardened gaze and a voice that demanded attention, stood at the map table inside the command hub. His team, handpicked from various walks of life, medics, engineers, scouts, even a former school principal, listened closely. Their mission wasn't just survival. It was preservation. Inside Fort Grayson lay something more valuable than food or weapons. Something that could change the tide of the apocalypse. Elias tapped on a blinking red light on the map. They're getting closer. The Horde's trajectory shifted again. They've learned something. Or someone is guiding them. A murmur ran through the room. Zombies don't think, muttered Jules, a young surveillance tech barely in her 20s. Maybe they don't, Elias replied. But something's changed. Their movement is coordinated. They avoid traps now. At the far end of the room, a monitor flickered. Dr. Naomi Trent, a microbiologist and one of the few scientists left alive from the old CDC outpost, zoomed in on an aerial drone feed. There, right there, she pointed. That's a group of them circling an abandoned fuel station. They're not feeding. They're waiting. Waiting for what? Asked Theo, the team's scout. Dr. Trent hesitated. Reinforcements? It sounded absurd, but after everything they'd seen in the last year, nothing could be ruled out. These weren't the same mindless monsters they first encountered when the outbreak began. These creatures moved with purpose. Some even communicated, if the guttural groans and strange hand gestures could be called that. As the conversation continued, a warning siren blared from the northern perimeter. Guards rushed to their stations, weapons raised. Elias sprinted to the watch deck, binoculars in hand. Through the glass, he saw a lone figure limping toward the outer gate. "Hold your fire," he commanded. It was a man, bloodied, exhausted, dragging a backpack behind him. He collapsed just feet from the reinforced barrier. A team rushed out, weapons trained, and brought him in. Inside the infirmary, the man regained consciousness. His name was Cole, a former military contractor who claimed to have come from a settlement 60 miles west. That settlement no longer existed. "They swarmed us at night," Cole whispered. "Not random. Not wild. They had tactics. They drove us into one building, cut off the exits. Like they knew the layout." Elias exchanged a glance with Dr. Trent. "And then," Cole continued, "they stopped. One of them, it looked bigger, faster, gave a signal. The others froze. Then they walked away, like they were saving us for later." The words sank in like lead. Something had changed. The undead were evolving, or something was influencing them. That night, Elias walked alone through the armory corridor, mind heavy. He stopped outside a sealed door, one that only he and 2 others had access to. Behind it lay a device, a dormant prototype from before the fall. Designed to emit high-frequency signals, it was once intended to deter the infected. But in the wrong hands, it could attract them. Elias ran a hand over the keypad, but didn't enter. Not yet. Back in the barracks, murmurs of fear and uncertainty spread. Some questioned the safety of Fort Grayson. Others whispered about betrayal. Could someone inside be drawing the Horde closer? Could the stronghold's secrecy be compromised? And above ground, in the distance, the dead gathered. No longer scattered. No longer aimless. Their eyes glowed faintly beneath the moonlight, and at the head of the pack stood something larger, cloaked in shadow, watching, waiting. Inside Fort Grayson, hope still flickered, but the question lingered in every corner. Could the survivors truly hold the line, or was this the beginning of the end? Would you like me to continue with part 2? The morning after Cole's warning was anything but quiet. An unease hung in the air like fog, thick and impossible to ignore. Inside Fort Grayson, the Leadership Council gathered for an emergency meeting in the war room. The discovery of a smarter, more organized horde had shattered their assumption that the stronghold was untouchable. Captain Elias Ward stood at the front of the room, arms crossed, jaw tight. "We no longer have the luxury of time," he said. "If Cole's right, and I believe he is, we're not facing a mindless horde anymore. We're facing something coordinated." A holographic projection of the perimeter popped up on the table. Red zones marked the last known locations of undead sightings. Over the past 48 hours, there had been 3 drone malfunctions, 1 missing scout team, and now a mysterious figure directing the undead like soldiers on a battlefield. Naomi leaned forward. "We have to assume we're being watched. Every movement, every supply run, it's all information they could be using against us." "Are you suggesting we shut everything down?" Theo asked. "No," Elias said before she could answer. "But we need to make changes, fast. Double perimeter guards. Randomize patrol routes. And cancel all outside excursions until further notice." "Except one," said Jules, her voice soft but determined. Everyone turned toward her. Jules continued, "The antenna array on the West Hill, Sector Delta, needs repairs. Our drone feed is down in that sector, and if that area's compromised, we won't see the enemy until they're on our doorstep." Elias nodded grimly. "All right. We send a small team at nightfall. Stealth only." That night, a 4-person squad moved through the dark tunnels and emerged through an overgrown drainage outlet that led to the surface. Among them were Theo, the stealth expert, Mira, a sharpshooter, Reese, an engineer, and Cole, who volunteered to guide them through the safest path. The air outside was bitter and silent. Too silent. Using infrared goggles, they maneuvered through cracked roads and hollowed buildings until they reached the tower. Reese got to work while the others set up a watch perimeter. "I don't like this," Mira whispered, scanning the distance. "Too quiet." As Reese rewired the antenna, Cole moved toward the edge of a ruined brick wall and froze. In the distance, barely visible, stood one of the tall figures. Not shambling. Not moaning. Just, standing. Watching. Theo aimed his scope. "It's not attacking." Cole swallowed. "That's the one I saw before. The one that gave orders." Then, it turned. And behind it, dozens of glowing eyes emerged from the shadows. Reese screamed, "We've got company." With the array halfway repaired, the team scrambled. Mira fired cover shots while Theo tossed a flashbang, buying a few precious seconds. The creatures didn't scream or flinch, but they stopped moving, briefly stunned. "Move! Now!" Cole yelled, dragging Reese away from the console. Back at Fort Grayson, the radar blinked to life again. Inside the war room, Elias saw it, the horde moving in their direction, this time with precision. "They're probing us," Dr. Trent said. "Testing our response time." "This isn't a random attack," Elias muttered. "They want to see how we defend ourselves. Next time, they'll be faster." The returning squad made it back through the tunnel just before sunrise. They were shaken but alive. Cole gave his report immediately, describing the shadowy figure in greater detail. "It wasn't like the others," he said. "Its eyes weren't hollow. It studied us. Mutated? Trent asked. Possibly. Or something entirely new. Elias paced. We need answers. We need to know what we're dealing with. Later that day, deep in the lower labs, Naomi examined old research files from the military archives. She found one labeled, Project Ghost Line. It had only one warning stamped in red ink, Do not engage. Within the folder were notes about experimental efforts to use neural network stimulation to herd the infected. It appeared the early government hoped to create controllers, infected individuals with limited intelligence and the ability to influence others through bioelectric signals. If that program had ever succeeded, it meant the enemy wasn't evolving on its own. It was made that way. Naomi called Elias. I know what we're facing. And it wasn't born in the wild. It was born right here. Fort Grayson might be the key to stopping it, but also the reason it started. Elias stared at the old vault door at the end of the lab hallway, the one they had never opened. What's behind that door? He asked. Naomi answered quietly, the real secret of dead America. And outside, the horde was gathering again, closer, more unified. The survivors had one chance to prepare. Because next time, it wouldn't be a test. It would be war. Would you like to proceed with Part 3? The heavy steel door at the bottom of Fort Grayson had been sealed for decades. No one on the current team had ever seen it open. It was protected by multiple fail-safes, biometric locks, and a warning etched into the steel, unauthorized entry is a national security violation. And yet now, all eyes were on it. Naomi's discovery of Project Ghost Line had changed everything. The file didn't just confirm the government's experiments, it revealed that Fort Grayson itself had been the birthplace of the controllers. Intelligent infected, created as a last resort weapon. It was no coincidence the strongest and smartest of the undead were gathering here. Something inside the vault was calling them. This place isn't a sanctuary, Naomi said, voice low. It's bait. Captain Elias Ward paced in front of the vault, jaw clenched. Then why haven't they attacked yet? Why watch us from the shadows? Why wait? Because they don't want to destroy us, Naomi replied. They want access. Elias turned to her. Access to what? I don't know. But if they breach this vault, we might not be dealing with a regional threat anymore. We could lose the entire continent. The leadership team reconvened in the upper control room, a tension growing between survival and truth. Jules suggested destroying the vault entrance. Others weren't so sure. We don't even know what's in there, said Reese. Could be another weapon. Could be a cure. Or it could be exactly what they're after, Theo countered. Opening that vault is exactly what they want. Naomi revealed one more detail. According to the recovered data, there was a failsafe command center deep within the vault, supposedly able to send a shutdown signal to all test subjects in the Ghost Line program. A neural disruptor. A potential kill switch. But only if it still worked. We may not have a choice, Elias said. If that control center exists, and we don't use it, this stronghold falls, and so does every other human settlement. That night, the perimeter alarms buzzed again, this time, not from movement, but from vibration. Something was digging beneath the outer fence. The enemy wasn't charging the walls. They were burrowing. Above ground, the creatures moved in eerie patterns, unified and controlled, like soldiers surrounding a fortress. And watching from a burned-out clock tower was the tall infected figure, its pale eyes focused directly toward the vault deep underground. It knew where it needed to go. Elias gave the order, reinforce the lower levels. Triple the guards around the vault. No one goes in, or out, without authorization. Down in the labs, Naomi prepped a small crew. We may need to go in there soon. I need volunteers to help reactivate the internal systems. Cole stepped forward immediately. You saved me once. I owe you. Reese hesitated, then nodded. If there's a kill switch, I want to be the one who flips it. Meanwhile, Jules monitored the surveillance network, running AI scans of the creature's behavior. Something terrifying became clear: the creatures weren't just circling, they were mapping. Studying. Even avoiding the hidden landmines they shouldn't have known existed. They know our defenses, she whispered. They've seen them before. Theo joined her in the control center. You're saying, they've been here? No, Jules said. I think, they were made here. Back in the infirmary, Mira tended to wounded guards from the last scout patrol. One of them had been clawed near the shoulder, not bitten, but still infected with trace amounts of something new. Naomi ran tests and found a variant strain, something engineered. This isn't a mutation, she said. It's a refinement. A more stable version of the original virus. Someone's still working on it, either in the wild, or... She didn't finish. The implication was clear. Maybe the enemy wasn't only outside the walls. That night, one of the external motion cameras captured something unexpected, a human silhouette, walking calmly among the infected. The creatures moved aside for him. He carried something metallic, perhaps a transmitter, perhaps a weapon. He walked straight up to the North Watch Tower, placed the device at the base, then turned and vanished into the horde. The tower exploded moments later. Lights across Fort Grayson flickered. One of their northern defense towers was gone. Elias shouted into the comms. Lock down every access point. Full red alert. We've got an infiltrator, and he may not be infected. The enemy wasn't just evolving. It was adapting. Learning. And worse, someone, somewhere, might be helping them. Inside the stronghold, tension turned to dread. If Fort Grayson fell, there would be no second chance. And as the vault lights flickered on for the first time in years, the countdown to the final confrontation had begun. Ready for Part 4? The early morning silence inside Fort Grayson was broken by the blaring wail of evacuation sirens. Smoke still rose from the destroyed North Tower, and the defensive walls bore blackened scorch marks. The infiltrator's explosive device had done more than knock out infrastructure, it had exposed a deeper threat. Someone within the stronghold had helped it happen. Captain Elias Ward stood at the edge of the blast site, jaw tight, eyes scanning the wreckage. There's no way that figure outside knew where to place that device without help. Someone gave them the layout. Naomi, standing beside him, nodded grimly. Then we're not just fighting the infected anymore. We're fighting betrayal. Back in the command center, Jules worked with Theo to analyze the footage. Enhance the video, Jules said, freezing the frame of the figure walking through the horde. Theo zoomed in. The man's face was partially visible in the flickering flames from the explosion. His features were familiar. Too familiar. It can't be, Jules whispered. Cole walked in just as the face came into focus. He stopped cold. That's Commander Voss. Everyone in the room stared at the screen. Commander Everett Voss had been the original architect of Fort Grayson, its military founder. He was declared dead during the collapse of Site Black 2 years earlier, during a failed evacuation mission. His death had been confirmed by drone footage. Or so they thought. If Voss is alive, Theo started. Then something's gone horribly wrong, Cole finished. Naomi slammed a folder shut. He wasn't just a soldier. He was one of the head researchers on Project Ghostline. If anyone knows how to command the infected, it's him. Cole turned to Elias. This changes everything. Voss knows our systems. Our codes. Even the vault protocols. Elias nodded grimly. Then it's only a matter of time before he finds a way in. Meanwhile, in the lower levels of Fort Grayson, strange things began to happen. Power flickered in the labs. Doors locked and unlocked without input. Surveillance cameras went dark in certain sectors. Naomi suspected remote interference, someone using hidden systems that even she hadn't known about. Late that night, Mira was doing rounds near the South Barracks when she spotted movement, someone ducking behind the comms relay station. She drew her weapon and approached quietly, stepping around a rusted pipe. "Stop right there," she ordered. The figure turned. It was Dr. Wren, a quiet and reclusive tech engineer who rarely left the lower maintenance floors. Mira lowered her weapon slightly. "What are you doing here?" Wren stammered. I heard the signal." There was static, but layered under it, something else. A voice. "What voice?" He looked terrified. "Commander Voss. He's broadcasting on a buried frequency. I traced it, it's coming from beneath us." They took him to Naomi, who immediately examined the data. A frequency, faint but steady, had indeed been detected. A looping transmission on a classified military channel, buried beneath the emergency beacon system. When she decrypted the signal, the message chilled them all. "Open the vault. Deliver the future." Cole clenched his fists. "He's trying to trigger the final phase of Ghostline." Naomi nodded. "And he's using our own systems to do it." Worse still, Voss was not alone. Satellite imaging, recovered just hours earlier, showed a growing pattern. Infected groups from neighboring sectors were all converging on Fort Grayson. Hundreds, possibly thousands, marching steadily in organized lines. They weren't hunting. They were obeying. And at the center of each formation stood a figure like Voss, tall, commanding, human in posture but clearly changed. It was clear now, Voss had found a way to control the infection without succumbing to it. He wasn't just leading the undead. He had become something in between. "The vault is the key," Naomi said. "There's something inside that final chamber he wants. Maybe the neural disruptor. Or maybe..." Jules finished her sentence. "Maybe the prototype controller serum." Naomi nodded gravely. The serum could permanently bond the intelligence of a human to the virus, creating a fully sentient commander that never decays. Theo turned toward the vault corridor. "If he gets it, there's no stopping him." Suddenly, the entire stronghold shook violently. The underground sensors flared red. A massive breach was reported at the western subtunnel, the one connected to an old access shaft no one had used in years. The infected had found their way inside. Gunfire erupted down the hall. Alarms blared. Elias grabbed the comms unit. "All units. Lock down level 4. Initiate counter-surge defense grid. Protect the vault at all costs." Naomi turned to Cole. "We don't have time to argue anymore. If we're going to use that disruptor, we need to go in now." Cole grabbed his rifle. "Then let's finish what Voss started, the right way." As the fortified doors to the vault slowly opened for the first time in decades, the team descended into darkness, toward whatever truth still slept in the cold, buried heart of Fort Grayson. The final war for humanity's future had officially begun. Ready for Part 5? The hiss of hydraulics echoed through the corridor as the final vault doors groaned open. Inside, a sterile blue glow illuminated rows of containment pods, sealed crates, and military-grade terminals humming with ancient code. The air was cold, so cold that even Naomi, who had seen Fort Grayson's darkest corners, felt a chill deeper than the temperature. Cole stepped in first, weapon raised. "We've waited too long to see what was behind these doors." Theo followed, wide-eyed. "This isn't just a vault. It's a laboratory, a testing chamber." Mira scanned the room, her fingers trembling on her rifle trigger. "This feels wrong. Like something's watching us." Naomi approached the central console. Dust-covered, yet alive. The screen flickered, awaiting command. With a few keystrokes, she unlocked the system. Files filled the screen, dozens of them. Each marked with the same codename. Project Ghostline, Stage 7, Neural Dominion Protocol. What is this? Jules whispered, leaning in. Naomi read aloud. Final attempt at controlled symbiosis. Genetic augmentation of human neural pathways using viral carriers. Goal, intelligent infection, controllable, scalable, obedient. Cole shook his head. They were trying to tame the undead. No, Naomi corrected. They were trying to become something more. A hybrid. Like Voss. In the far corner, one containment pod glowed faintly. A figure floated inside, suspended in a blue liquid, tubes running through its limbs. It was human. Or had been. Now its eyes flickered with a dim orange hue. Not alive. Not dead. Mira stepped back. Is that one of the test subjects? Naomi's voice was barely above a whisper. That is Subject 0. The first to survive full neural integration with the virus. Jules tapped a file. It says Subject 0 disappeared during the collapse of Site Black. But if they were moved here. They were preserved, Naomi said. Waiting for the right moment. Suddenly, a klaxon blared across the base. A breach warning, Section Delta. Then another, Omega Corridor. The enemy had found the subtunnels. Fort Grayson's interior was no longer safe. They're coming, Theo muttered. They're inside. Cole turned toward Naomi. Is there anything in here we can use to stop them? She nodded. The neural disruptor. It was designed to destabilize the virus's grip on hybrid minds. Voss won't be able to hold control if we trigger it. But? Mira asked. Naomi glanced at the control panel. It will only work within a limited radius. And once it's activated, it burns out. We only get one shot. Before they could plan further, the vault door slammed shut behind them, locking with a metallic clang. Lights in the room flickered. The consoles shifted. A distorted voice echoed from the speakers. Welcome back, Naomi, it said. Everyone froze. Naomi's face turned pale. That's Voss's voice. The monitors displayed his face, slightly decayed, but sharp-eyed, intelligent. His smile was eerie. I knew you'd return here eventually, he said. Everything you need to destroy me is right there. And yet, none of you will make it out alive. You used to fight for the cure. Cole shouted. What happened to you? Voss's image tilted his head. I found the truth. Survival doesn't mean resisting the future, it means becoming it. You all still cling to your old world. I'm here to burn it down. Suddenly, a burst of energy crackled across the ceiling. The containment pod holding Subject 0 began to pulse. Alarms blared. He's activating the hybrid. Naomi yelled. He's trying to override it and use it as a backup. Cole didn't hesitate. He raised his rifle and fired at the pod. The glass cracked, then shattered as blue liquid burst forth. The body inside fell to the floor, twitching violently. Mira rushed over. It's still alive. The hybrid creature began to rise, its limbs unnatural, movements jerky, its face contorted in confusion. For a moment, it seemed lost, then its glowing orange eyes locked onto Naomi. Then it screamed. A horrific, guttural sound that echoed in all directions. Naomi scrambled to the disruptor panel. Buy me 60 seconds. Cole, Mira, and Theo opened fire as the hybrid lunged forward, swiping with claws that had once been fingers. Bullets tore into it, but it kept moving, relentless, like pain no longer mattered. Jules dragged power cables from the floor, connecting them to the disruptor. Sparks flew as Naomi overloaded the battery. 30 seconds. The hybrid grabbed Theo and slammed him against the wall. His cry cut off abruptly. Mira shouted and unloaded a full clip into its head. It stumbled, dazed, but not dead. Naomi screamed, "Now!" She slammed the activation button. A wave of blue light pulsed out from the device, soundless, invisible, but devastating. The hybrid froze. Its body convulsed violently, eyes flickering from orange to black, then nothing. It collapsed. At the same moment, in the base above, infected that had broken through began to falter. Reports crackled over radios, their confused, breaking ranks. The disruptor worked. But they had lost Theo. Naomi dropped to her knees beside his body, eyes wet. "I'm sorry." Cole looked at the lifeless hybrid. "We stopped it. But Voss, he's still out there." Naomi stood slowly. "And now, he knows what we're capable of." Outside the sealed vault, Fort Grayson burned. The final battle was coming, and both sides were preparing. Shall I continue with Part 6? Fort Grayson's sky was no longer dark with ash, it was red with fire. Plumes of smoke twisted into the clouds like serpents, and gunfire echoed endlessly from the upper levels. The outer perimeter had collapsed. And the horde was already inside. Cole, Naomi, Mira, and Jules emerged from the vault, tired, bloodied, and two fewer than they went in. Theo's death still lingered like a shadow over the team. "Command is gone," Jules reported, scanning the flickering comms. "Captain Alvarez is missing. Most squads are down. The North Wing is under Voss's control." Naomi looked around, jaw tight. "We don't have time to regroup. If he breaches the command center, he'll control the long-range comms. He could jam every survivor network on the East Coast." Cole wiped blood from his brow. "Then we hold the line at the control tower. That's where we make our stand." Mira tightened her grip on her rifle. "One last stand," sounds familiar. But as they turned to move, a figure stepped from the hallway shadows. A young soldier, barely out of his teens, eyes wide with panic. His uniform bore Fort Grayson's mark. "Help, they're everywhere, they turned my squad." Jules approached him slowly. "Easy. You're safe now." The boy's voice trembled. "I thought I was the only one left. I've been hiding in the generator room since they broke through." But Naomi's eyes narrowed. "Where exactly were you stationed?" He hesitated. "East Corridor. Gamma Team." Naomi froze. Gamma was wiped out 2 days ago. No survivors. The boy's face twitched, barely a flicker. But it was enough. "Down!" Naomi yelled. The boy lunged, too fast for a normal human. His eyes turned glassy, his mouth curled into an unnatural smile. Mira fired point blank. The bullet tore through his chest, but he kept coming, until Cole drove a blade through his neck. The body dropped, twitching like a marionette with cut strings. "What was that?" Jules gasped. Naomi knelt beside the corpse. "A sleeper. One of Voss's embedded operatives. Hybridized, but not visibly infected. He's planting them inside our ranks now." Cole shook his head. "How many more are there?" "Could be dozens," Naomi replied. "Hundreds if he's smart. Anyone could be compromised." Paranoia settled in like a fog. They couldn't trust anyone outside their small group. Not now. Naomi pulled out a neural scanner from her gear, limited use, but enough to test the 4 of them. One by one, she scanned them. All clear. "For now," Mira muttered. "That doesn't mean he won't find a way in." As they neared the command tower, they heard the unmistakable roar of heavy engines. Across the yard, a scavenged transport, likely taken from one of the outlying patrols, smashed through the last intact barricade. Behind it, dozens of infected sprinted forward, but these were different. They wore scraps of armor. They moved in formation. Voss's new army had discipline. Hybrids leading the ferals, Naomi said grimly. He's turning them into a proper military. A voice boomed from loudspeakers hidden across the base. You see them now, don't you? Voss echoed. Not mindless. Not broken. They are better than we ever were. They do not fear. They do not question. They obey. Cole gritted his teeth. Then let's see if they bleed. He motioned for everyone to split up and flank the command tower entrance. Mira launched smoke grenades, clouding the enemy's line of sight. Jules scrambled up a wrecked watchtower, offering overwatch with a sniper rifle. As the hybrids advanced, Mira tossed a satchel charge under their transport. With a thunderous blast, the vehicle exploded, taking several leaders with it. The ferals shrieked and scattered. Cole and Naomi charged in, mowing down the stragglers. But even as they pushed forward, Naomi spotted something strange. One of the infected stopped mid-run, and smiled at her. It wasn't a vacant grin, it was knowing. She hesitated. That second cost her. The infected lunged, not at her, but at the control door's lock panel. With a clawed hand, it sliced through the access console, short-circuiting the internal systems. Manual overrides down, she shouted. We'll have to breach from the roof. Mira nodded. Let's climb. As they ascended a crumbling scaffold, Jules radioed in. Movement inside. They're already in the stairwells. Then we'll meet them halfway, Cole said. And end this. By the time they reached the roof, the base was in ruins. Smoke and ash swirled in every direction. Inside the tower, the last few defenders were fighting tooth and nail. Naomi connected her wrist drive to the backup override on the rooftop terminal. She could still access the satellite comms, barely. She sent a single encrypted signal. Grayson compromised. Final defense. Send fire. Mira looked at her. You just called in an airstrike on our position. Naomi nodded. If we can't kill Voss here, we bury him under the rubble. Cole looked at the burning horizon. Then we make sure he stays here. As the first wave of infected climbed the stairwell, the survivors prepared for the bloodiest stand of their lives. And above them, the roar of jets broke the sky. Ready for part 7? The wind howled across the rooftop of Fort Grayson's command tower. Smoke curled skyward from the burning yard below, where the last remnants of the once mighty base crumbled under the weight of the horde. The infected had breached every gate. Every wall. Every defense. And still, the survivors held their ground. Naomi crouched beside the backup control panel, hands flying over the interface as she monitored the airstrike's approach. 3 minutes until impact. That's all the time we've got. Cole paced behind her, blood-smeared blade in one hand, rifle slung across his back. We hold this tower for 3 minutes. No matter what. Mira was positioned near the stairwell, 2 grenades clipped to her vest and a shotgun resting across her knees. They're coming. I hear them. Fast. Jules, high above on the rooftop's radio mast, adjusted his scope. They've surrounded the base. This is it. Below them, Voss stood in the courtyard, unaffected by the chaos. His monstrous form gleamed in the firelight, part human, part something else. His voice carried over the loudspeakers once more. You think the sky will save you? Fire won't stop evolution. Fire won't stop me. Naomi glanced at Cole. If he gets out of here, he'll infect every resistance network across the country. This is the only place we can stop him. Cole nodded grimly. Then let's make sure this tower becomes his tomb. The first wave hit. The stairwell door burst open with a thunderous crash. Hybrid infected poured through, faster, smarter, and armored. Mira unleashed her shotgun, blasting the first two back down the steps. A third reached her, but Jules picked it off with a clean headshot from above. Cole rushed to reinforce her, blade slicing through the next attacker. But the hybrids didn't come alone. Behind them were the ferals, dozens of them, screeching and clawing as they surged forward. They just keep coming. Mira shouted, reloading. Hold the line. Naomi yelled. We don't need to win, we just need to last. A hybrid leapt at her from the side, but she ducked and drove her combat knife into its throat. Its gurgled scream was drowned in the chaos. Suddenly, the floor beneath them shook. A massive explosion rocked the lower levels, something was breaching from below. Cole's voice hardened. Voss. A moment later, the roof access panel tore apart from the inside, and Voss emerged, surrounded by a personal guard of his most powerful creations, twisted things that wore the faces of the fallen. Their eyes glowed with unnatural intelligence. You fight so hard to preserve a broken world, Voss growled, stepping onto the rooftop. But I've seen the future. It belongs to the virus. Naomi turned to him, defiant. You're not the future. You're just the final mistake. With a roar, Voss charged. The battle was chaos. Mira was knocked aside by one of Voss's lieutenants, barely rolling away as claws slashed where her head had been. Cole met Voss in a brutal melee, blade against bone, man against monster. Naomi ran for the beacon, her comm still active. 2 minutes until strike. Jules fired again and again, each shot picking off hybrids that threatened to flank Naomi. He gritted his teeth. We're running out of time and ammo. Cole was slammed into a wall, blood pouring from a gash in his side. He looked up as Voss raised a clawed hand, ready to strike the killing blow. But Mira intervened, planting both grenades on Voss's back and kicking him away. She dove for cover. Now! The explosion rocked the rooftop, hurling Voss backward and blowing 3 hybrids clean off the edge. Smoke cleared. Voss staggered upright, his armor torn, his face partly melted, but still alive. You can't stop me, he hissed. You can't stop what's coming. Cole stood, barely able to lift his weapon. We're not stopping it. We're ending you. He tackled Voss into the control antenna, using his last strength to pin the creature against the steel. Naomi screamed. Cole, get back. 30 seconds. No time, Cole growled into the comms. Tell them to fire. Naomi's eyes welled with tears, but her hand didn't tremble. She pressed the final code into the console. Strike confirmed. Above them, the sky split with the roar of descending jets. Voss let out one final scream, one of rage, pain, and fear. The rooftop vanished in a blaze of white light. Far outside the city, Naomi, Mira, and Jules emerged from a hidden blast shelter, an escape tunnel Naomi had discovered hours earlier, never mentioning it, never believing they'd use it. The earth behind them burned. Fort Grayson was gone. But so was Voss. Do you think Cole made it? Jules asked quietly. Naomi didn't answer. Mira looked toward the smoking horizon. We didn't win. But we bought the world a little more time. Naomi nodded. Then let's use it. Ready for Part 8, finale? The smoldering ruins of Fort Grayson faded into the distance behind them. Naomi, Mira, and Jules traveled in silence through the battered countryside, their truck bouncing over broken roads and cratered terrain. The once bustling regions of dead America now lay in eerie silence, free of the infected, for now. They had survived. But survival no longer felt like victory. Cole's sacrifice still echoed in Naomi's mind. She could still see him, battered and bloodied, holding Voss in place as the airstrike descended. He had known there was no coming back. He'd made the choice none of them could. Jules broke the silence. Satellite feeds confirm it. Grayson's gone. The horde around it is gone. And, no trace of Voss. Mira nodded slowly. Then it worked. Cole finished it. Naomi's grip tightened on the wheel. We finished it. But this war isn't over. They stopped at an old radio tower on the outskirts of a ghost town. The tower still had power, barely. Naomi climbed up to the control booth and began transmitting on all frequencies. Her voice, steady and clear, rang through the broken airwaves of dead America. This is Naomi Lee, survivor of Fort Grayson. If you're hearing this, Voss is dead. The stronghold has fallen, but the infection can be pushed back. There's still a chance. If you're alive, gather, organize, and fight. There's hope again. We are the resistance now. She repeated the message, over and over, as Mira and Jules stood guard outside. After half an hour, a crackle answered through the static. A woman's voice, we hear you. This is Ridge Colony. Survivors in Utah. We've been hiding underground for months. We're ready. Then another voice. This is Kodiak Base in Alaska. We still have fuel and air transport. Sending drones to locate survivor pockets. More voices followed. Florida. Nevada. Canada. Even scattered groups from Mexico and South America responded. The world was waking up. Naomi stepped away from the mic, exhausted but smiling faintly. It's working. Jules looked stunned. After everything, we might actually have a chance. Mira folded her arms, glancing at the horizon. Then we can't stop now. We need to build a new stronghold. Not one run by generals and secrets. One run by people who know what this fight costs. They set off again, heading toward a pre-marked fallback point on an old military map, Blackstone Ridge. An abandoned hydroelectric facility with fortified walls and underground reserves. It could be rebuilt. Reinforced. As they drove, Jules looked at Naomi. Do we tell the others about what Cole did? Naomi nodded. We tell them everything. The truth matters now more than ever. By nightfall, they arrived at Blackstone Ridge. The old facility sat silent in the moonlight, vines crawling over its outer walls. But the structure was solid. The gates could be repaired. The generators could be restarted. Mira walked through the main control room, flashlights sweeping the walls. This place could work. Give me a few days and we'll have electricity, surveillance, and perimeter sensors running again. Jules checked the security grid. We've even got satellite uplink options. With this tech, we could coordinate global response centers. Naomi climbed to the highest point of the ridge, overlooking the valley below. In the distance, faint signs of life flickered, campfires, tiny clusters of light. Survivors. She pulled out the patch from Cole's old jacket, tattered and soot-stained. She pinned it to the new command post's wall and stood back. This place isn't Fort Grayson, she said. It's better. It's for all of us. And it'll stand for something real. As the days passed, others arrived. Survivors drawn by the signal. Fighters, farmers, doctors, engineers. No ranks, no secrets, only purpose. They called it Haven Blackstone. Within weeks, its walls were rebuilt. Drones flew recon missions. Convoys transported rescued families. And far across the infected zones, those once lost began to rise, hope ignited by the signal Naomi sent. There were still infected. Still dangers. Still horrors buried in shadow. But now, there was also coordination. Defenses. Strategy. Now, there was resistance. Late one night, as Naomi stood by the watchtower, Mira joined her. You think Cole would have liked it? Naomi smiled faintly. He would have grumbled about the coffee and the lack of walls, but yeah, he'd have been proud. And Voss? Mira asked. You really think he's gone? Naomi looked out across the silent woods. If he's not, he'll come back to a world ready to fight. A world no longer hiding. They stood in silence, two warriors in the quiet of a new dawn. Below them, the lights of Haven Blackstone glowed like stars. The end. Would you like a short outro script or title card idea for YouTube to close this audiobook in a powerful way?